This month, we welcome Crystal Crawford. Crystal is a homeschooling mom of four, part-time nonprofit director and writing teacher and indie author. Her imagination is her happy place. Crystal writes fantasy and YA with a smattering of other genres and loves to create deep, enveloping story worlds. Crystal has one published YA fantasy series, The Lex Chronicles, Legends of Aramis, and is now writing a new YA paranormal folklore-inspired fantasy series, The Layward Stories, which is currently publishing in weekly episodes on Amazon's Kindle Vella serial platform. Crystal has published two stories with Dreamforge magazine. Both Our Kind and One Shot at Aiden are both side stories set in the Layward Stones. Okay, and we will put the links for those. Today, Crystal will tell us about her experiences publishing with Kindle Vella. Kindle Vella is a way to share serialized stories with readers over an extended period, one episode at a time. Readers can find and view a story's detail page in the Kindle Vella store. Read the first few episodes of every story for free. Kindle Vella offers features like faves and thumbs up to engage with stories. So, Crystal, why don't you tell us all about Kindle Vella?
Okay, so I guess I'll start with just sort of a rundown of what Kindle Vella is and what it does. And then if anybody has questions at any point, let me know and I can pause and explain. Essentially, Amazon launched Kindle Vella in July of 2021. Can everybody hear me okay? My mic is sometimes weird. Okay. And I was on board when they launched. So they sent out a notification kind of ahead of time, letting people know they were doing this, and they encouraged authors who already had stuff published through KDP to get episodes up so that when they launched, they would actually have content. So I've been with Kindle Vella since the launch in 2021, July. And their goal for it, they said, was to sort of replicate the TV show anticipation. So weekly episodes, stories posting, you have an audience who is excited every week about seeing the next episode. And that was sort of the vibe that they wanted to create with Kindle Vella. So it's a platform where you can post as often as you want, but they encourage at least once a week for posting, and people can follow your story. And they actually buy token packages and unlock your episodes with tokens. So as an author, you get a 50-50 royalty split with Amazon on the tokens, but that's pennies per episode. The actual pay comes in their bonuses. If any of you are familiar with how Kindle Unlimited runs, they have a bonus pool, and they set up Kindle Vella the same way. So they have a monthly bonus pool for Kindle Vella. It's up into the millions now, I think. And every month, they divide up that bonus pool, and qualifying authors, which essentially means you're actively publishing, you have some level of readership, get a portion of that bonus pool depending on a lot of nebulous factors that they don't actually clearly define. But they do say that it's based on things like follows, reads, unlocks on your episodes, and then your fave ranking. So they have a system on the site called the top faved, and the 250 stories is where it caps. And every week, readers that log in every week, it resets every Sunday. The first time that a reader unlocks an episode, like pays to unlock an episode, a thing pops up on their screen that has a scroll bar of all the stories they've been reading recently, and it asks them to pick their fave story for the week. And so then those go into that list, and that's one of the factors for how bonuses are distributed. So the pay for Kindle Vella is the royalty unlocks and then the bonuses, but the real money is in the bonuses, if that makes sense. Any questions so far before I get deeper into kind of how it works?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So, sorry. Are those the only two ways you're getting paid for it, or are you also getting paid like off of page views? Maybe you said that and I missed it.
The only two ways that you're getting paid are the royalties from unlocks and then the bonus pool that they calculate every month. And we have a dashboard, kind of like you would have a KDP dashboard. There's one for Kindle Vella, And so I can see how many reads I'm getting. I can see how many of those are paid reads, because the first 3 episodes of every story are free for anyone to read, but then Amazon keeps giving out free token packages also to readers. We get paid for those, but we get paid at like a set rate rather than the rate of whatever else, however they would calculate it. And that goes into our bonus amount. So I can see on my dashboard how many of my reads were like people just paid to unlock them versus they unlocked them with free tokens versus, I can see how many reads on each episode. There's also a thumbs up feature. I can see how many thumbs up on each episode. And so I can estimate my royalties for the month, but then the bonus is where the real money comes in. And I honestly I sort of have a ballpark expectation based on the performance of my story every month, but I'm always sort of like, okay, what's it going to be this month? It just released yesterday. The January bonus, I won't know until February 20th, and December, I didn't know until yesterday what my December bonus was. So there's a little bit of a lag in terms of calculating like how much am I going to spend on advertising, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yes, Amazon has said that they're not ever planning to do away with the bonus pool. Their plan for compensation for Vella is that twofold royalties plus bonus, if that makes sense.
We do have a question here about Kindle and Amazon publishing rights. Like what? How does that work?
Okay, so when you publish on Kindle Vella, they have some exclusivity things, but they are limited time. So once an episode has been up 30 days on Kindle Vella, I am free to publish it elsewhere in long form, what they call. So essentially, and I can explain in more detail in a minute, but essentially I can put a story on Kindle Vella, and then after a certain amount of time, I can package those episodes into a book and release it as an ebook, not just on KU, but on any platform wide. And there's no issue with that. So it is different than the Kindle Unlimited exclusivity in that I can take it and do whatever I want with it past that 30 days that it's been on Kindle Vella. What I can't do is have it for free somewhere while it's also on Kindle Vella. It has to be, if I'm releasing it episodically, it has to be behind the paywall. And if I package it into a book, I can't just give it away for free publicly. I could do private giveaways or whatever, but it can't be available on the internet somewhere free, because then it's not fair to people who are paying to unlock with tokens. Does that answer your question?
Crystal, on the tokens, you mentioned Kindle giving away a lot for free to promote the program. Is there a way that readers just go in, hey, I need to buy more tokens?
Yes. So the tokens are purchased in packages. And they did something recently not super recently, like within the last year or so, to where you can't actually purchase stuff inside the Kindle app. You have to go to Amazon website to purchase them. But you can they have different tiers, and if you buy them both, then it's like a little cheaper. And once your tokens run out, then you have to buy another token package. What Amazon is doing is they're doing lots of incentives for new readers. New readers automatically get 200 free tokens the first time that they read something on Kindle Vella. And then for like KU members, and I'm not a Kindle Unlimited member, but I've gotten some anyway, just inside my Kindle app. That's like a special offer where if you claim it by the end of the month, you get 500 free tokens or whatever. We do, as authors, get paid for those unlocks, but they don't appear in our royalties. They get lumped in with our bonuses at the end of the month. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
So if no one else has a specific question, I'll just kind of go deeper into how it works. So there is a publishing dashboard, and you can either write your story directly into it, or I keep all of my own files and I copy it over. And the episodes, they have a requirement. It has to be between 600 and 5,000 words per episode. And then you just upload them and click publish, and it publishes them for you. It's super easy. There's no like advanced formatting involved. The only thing is that they have like a 72-hour review period. So you have to kind of work ahead of when you're wanting them to publish, and you can schedule them. So what I have right now is I have my episodes through February 1st already all scheduled out so that I don't have to worry about it. I try to write several episodes ahead of what I'm actually posting, so I don't ever end up in a spot where I have an episode that's supposed to be going up and I have no content. So I have mine all scheduled out through February 1st, and I am this weekend writing the next batch of stuff so that, again, I don't get behind on having content to post. So that's sort of how the structure, like on the author and how it's going in. Once it's up there, then you just have to drive traffic and visibility to your story. I will say that Kindle Vella is still, even though it's been going since July of 2021, it's still very new. It's still growing. It's limited only to US readership and US authors right now. I'm sure they're going to expand it eventually, but right now it's still limited to the US. There's not a ton of organic traffic just flooding into it. So I have to drive traffic to my story with Facebook ads, but I've had a really good return on doing this, way better than I've ever had on trying to drive traffic to like my ebooks with Facebook ads. And there are some inherent like built-in visibility systems inside Kindle Vella, like the top fave list, which I try to stay on, but if I shut off my ads, I quickly drop off the top faved because I'm not getting enough traffic for people to be picking my story when that scroll bar pops up. And then right now, my story is featured on a scroll bar on the homepage, which I had zero control over. That's just an Amazon did that thing. I don't know how long it'll be there. But honestly, it has given me only a small visibility, like a small traffic boost, because again, there's not a ton of organic traffic to Vella right now. Most of the traffic seems to be coming for particular stories. To answer Donald's question, it's not only 250 that get bonuses. It's that being on that list seems to put you in another level for how much bonus you get. So pretty much all the authors who are publishing regularly and have some level of readership get some level of bonus. I have two stories going, and one is a side story that was something I kind of had pre-written that I'm not focusing a lot of attention on. I'm not running ads, I'm not driving traffic. It still made a small bonus last month, like $30 for posting a couple episodes during the month. And so the level of traffic and visibility just really ramps up what you can get for bonuses. But so being on that 250 list isn't the determination of whether you get a bonus, it just impacts how much. And I don't know if it's a direct impact or if it's about visibility, like being on the list means more traffic means you get more bonuses. But Amazon has said that they do factor that in on some level. We just don't know how much. Are they planning an MP3 audio platform? Right now, it's only written stories. I think they might be planning to do audio at some point. I've heard whispers because people have been asking about that, obviously for accessibility among other reasons. But as of right now, it's just written content. There's no video capability and there's no audio capability. And to back up, how much do I invest? So right now, I started investing very small, and I've consistently doubled in bonus what I'm putting in ads pretty consistently. So my strategy has been to slowly reinvest what I'm making every month and ramp that up slowly. I had a couple months where I needed to live off my bonuses, so I didn't reinvest them, and it kind of reset that cycle, and then I had to start ramping my traffic back up. So I've learned that if I'm not consistently running Facebook ads, I very quickly drop off the visibility and my bonuses are impacted by that. But like, for example, and I'm functioning in small numbers and I don't mind being transparent. So like for December, my bonus was $650 for one story that I'm posting. I spent 300 and something in Facebook ads for that month. So again, I essentially doubled what I put in. I put in 300 in ads, I made 650. My plan is to reinvest, ramp up what I'm spending on ads and slowly ramp that up. When you get to the higher tiers, I just don't have the finances to do big spend. But I know some of the top ranking authors on Vella, and one of them was making $30,000 a month on a $4,000 ad spend. So I don't have $4,000 a month to put into ads. And she has methodically built, like, she's almost, Facebook ads are like a full-time job for her. She's testing, she's launching new ads, she's constantly tweaking to drive new traffic, experimenting with audiences. But it's working for her. So there is the potential for that. And I have other friends who are more in like the 10,000 a month range is what they were making a bonus, and they were spending maybe 2,000-3,000 in ads. So it does seem to have a bigger return. And again, that's because of the bonus pool. As you like rise up the ranks on Vella, the proportion of bonus that you're getting becomes much larger. So the return on what you're putting in is more, if that makes sense. Because it is sort of like a zero sum, like a pool that you're pulling from. Let's see. Yeah, so I was just reading Wolf Moon's question, but yeah.
I think you just answered him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know, I haven't talked with her the last couple of months. I don't know if she's still making that, but I would assume she is, because she's still ranking in the top few on Vella. And when they give the top 5 like their own right center in the front page scroll bar. So they then start to get organic traffic, and Amazon runs ads for your story. If you're in like the top 25, I've seen ads that Amazon is running for those stories to drive traffic to them. So everything gets amplified as you rise up the ranks. For me, I'm the growth I'm seeing. I'm anticipating that my January bonus is going to be, again, bigger. It's going to grow. So I was at $400 to $500 a month steadily in bonuses. That now jumped up to $650 this month. I'm expecting it's going to be bigger when I find out next month what this month's bonus is, because I've now kind of hit a sticky place in the traction on the top faved. I was writing in the like 200 to 250s toward the bottom of the list, but I was at least on the list. All month, I've now been in the 120s to 150s on the top fave list. So I'm getting like some stickiness in my traction there. So I don't know yet how much that will impact my bonus, because again, the factors are a little bit nebulous, and I won't know until the 20th of next month. So I cannot do Amazon ads for the Vella stories because Amazon has not yet put the component in for that. So like if I go into my Amazon ads platform, I can run ads for my ebooks, but if I try to select one of my Amazon Vella things, it says ineligible. And I think that's because of how they built the Vella platform. I've had experience on other serial platforms like Wattpad and stuff before, and Kindle Vella was built not so great as a serial platform, and they're having to tweak and expand it. It's like they took their ebook structure and then tried to convert it to serial. So originally when Vella launched, when people opened Kindle Vella at first it wasn't even in the Kindle app, it was only available on a browser. And then once it was available in the Kindle app, every episode was in your library like a separate book. Like they just flooded your whole library out with episodes looking like books, because they give every episode its own ASIN. And now they've changed it to where they at least lump together into one story in your Kindle Vella library, but every episode still has its own ASIN. So then when you go into the ad platform, it's recognizing those as books that cost like pennies a piece. So it won't let you run ads on them. I'm hoping that eventually they'll change that, because they have been developing. Again, Vella was a new thing, and they're working out a lot of the issues as they go. But we have seen a lot of improvements. Like right now, they're beta testing a commenting feature, because that's sort of a standard for a serial platform, is readers want to be able to engage and comment. And it didn't have that. It had, we can do author notes, like a one-way thing we can put at the end, but readers can't respond to it. So some of the stories now have been selected for beta testing a commenting feature, which I'm really excited about because I like the interaction. And we also have polls now that we can get feedback from readers at the end of episodes. We can use those however we want. I've used them for feedback on my plot. I've used them for demographics on who's reading my story. And so they're developing it. I'm hoping ads will be one of those things that they eventually fix where we can actually run ads. They did link our stories to our Amazon Author Central pages finally. So now our Vella stories show up there on Author Central, and our names are hyperlinked inside Vella. If somebody clicks it, they can go to our author page. So again, I'm hoping that Amazon ads. Right now, Facebook ads is the best that I found. I've tried some other platforms. And I run my Facebook ads on Instagram too, but I actually get more engagement on them on Facebook. So.
Speaking as someone who's been involved with software development, it sounds like what you're describing is a system where a team at some point got the go ahead to try some little project, and then it had a little success, and they said, "Oh, it is not the case. It does not sound the case where Amazon basically spent a great deal of time and effort to create an entirely thought out project, implement it, beta test it, and then launch it so that everything is interconnected and works smoothly." They're just growing this as it goes, which brings up the question: where do you see things growing? Do you think they see it as successful, and do you think they are going to continue to grow it?
Yes. So first of all, I 100% agree with you, because just from the author end of things, I was in a Discord with other Vella authors that we've all been there since it launched, and we joke that Vella is basically run by well, we know that there's someone called KDP Sam because they're the front person that interacts with all of us in the community forums. And then we just joke that the other guy is like Dave in the basement, and they just put Vella in the basement. What we do know is that when Vella launched, it was a very small team because I think her name is Virginia. She's done some interviews, public interviews you can find on YouTube when Vella first launched about Vella and her vision for it. But I do get the impression it was a very small test project that they were just like, sure, give it a try. But I do think that they're going to continue to grow it, because over the last year and a half that it's been running, we have seen continual development of features. Again, they're beta testing commenting now. They've added other things. They expanded from just browser into the Kindle app and onto other devices. And they've also continued to increase the bonus pool every month. The bonus amount goes up every month. So I do think that they're seeing profitability that they're willing to invest in. They're just a little lagging behind on some of the features that, if they had had the budget and the resources up front to build it differently, probably would have been less of a headache for them. But I do think it's going to continue growing. I see it eventually expanding to an international audience, because when I was on Wattpad for years, and I did well there. I won Waddy Awards with my stories. I was invited to be on the Wattpad Stars team, which is the pool of paid authors where they allow you to monetize your stories and option you for Netflix shows and things. And I had a story that went viral and had over 3 million reads on Wattpad. But when I was on Wattpad, a lot of the interaction, the features, and all of that Vella just doesn't have, that I think they're working to get. I think that will increase the readership in the audience once they add those, because the serial audience expects and wants some level of interactivity. And then also, when I was on Wattpad, I had a huge international audience. Serial reading is very popular outside of the US. So once they expand, I think that they're going to see growth, but they may just be wanting to get the platform itself more functional before they do that. But they're also talking about expanding to international authors eventually, because right now you have to be a US-based author also to use Vella. So there are people who do workarounds for that. I don't recommend that, but there are people who do that.
So it's still a good time to get in on the ground floor.
It is. It's still very much in a growth phase. For me, it's been a year and a half, and I would like to have seen growth quicker, but I realize that that's, it's a slow and steady thing with how Amazon runs. And if I wasn't around at the beginning of Kindle Unlimited, but I've heard from plenty of people who had been around when Kindle Unlimited was first launched, that it followed a very similar growth process to what's happening now with Vella. Features slowly being rolled out, tweaks being made, before they like expanded it. So international is the number one question they get asked, and that they're working on it. Yes. So a lot of the things that we ask, I will say the Vella team is very responsive. So they are actually listening to authors in the KDP community forums and adding the features that we want. And some of my friends who are higher ranked and getting more visibility, like in the top 25, top faved, Amazon has personal representatives working with them, and they're beta testing features for the platform and giving their feedback. And I know that because some of those authors have reached out to me because of my experience on Wattpad to ask me what I thought of certain things or whatever. So they are responsive to authors. They are wanting to improve it and grow it, which is a really good thing. So any other questions, or I can go deeper into features like the thumbs up. There's reviews also for the stories. It's kind of, again, I feel like it's a carryover from ebooks. It doesn't entirely make sense for a serial to have a review the same as an ebook, because sometimes people are reviewing after they've only read a couple of episodes. But I can go deeper into any of those features if you guys have questions.
Yeah, certainly do that. I just wanted to say my observation from listening to you so far is you're really approaching this as a business. I mean, you have schedules, you've thought this out, you stay ahead of it. You know what your production is, you're monitoring how well your Facebook ads work. So I just want to stress that that's a very important point, and has undoubtedly contributed to your success so far. And if someone just thinks they're just going to get on Kindle Vella, type in 600 words or whatever the limit is, and the next week they're going to be flying high with faves and attention and that sort of thing, that's usually not how most things work. You're working this. It's how much, like a good question would be, how much of your time, energy, and effort do you actually put into this as essentially your job to make that $600 a month?
So right now, most of my time goes to the actual writing, because the story that's up there is a very complex story, and it takes a lot of brain energy to write, and a lot of time to make sure I'm tracking all the details in the fantasy world and all of that. But I do spend, I would say, I check my Facebook ads every day, and I have a spreadsheet, just a simple Excel spreadsheet where I compare, I track all my data from my Vella ad, and then I have a notes bar where if I've changed anything on the ads, then I can look back and see it, so I can track, if I saw a jump in reads, did that coincide with a change I made to my audience for my ads, or a tweak I made to an ad. I would say that quick check takes a couple minutes every night. I just check my data, and then if I made any changes, I type it in. Making the changes to the Facebook ads took a lot more time at first. But now that I've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't work, usually if I have an ad that's not performing as well as it used to perform, it's usually a small tweak. Like, I can look at it and be like, okay, I've probably exhausted this audience. I need to expand the audience a little bit, or something like that. And there is creative fatigue with the ads. So I have a couple of different ad formats that I cycle through, so that I don't completely tank my Facebook ads because everybody's seen them. And my husband is also a graphic design guy, so he's currently working on making me some additional ad images, because we use custom images for my ads. We don't use stock ones. So that's all work that goes into it. But I have my friend that's making 30,000. She does a little bit of her own art, but she uses stock images mostly. It's just about finding an image that represents your story well, and then learning what works with the Vella audience. So the type of Facebook ad that works with Vella is very specific and not what I would have expected. So I've been very blessed to have people who, like that author that's making 30,000, who was willing to share with me what was working for her Facebook ads. Because she, like I said, it's almost like a full-time job for her, but she's a data person and she loves it. So she's running all these ad tests, and she's having a great time with it and getting the data breakdowns and all of that. So that was really helpful for me when I was first getting started, that she was willing to share with me, had learned from her testing, so I wasn't starting from zero. But yeah, it is work. I started posting one episode per week, and that episode usually was somewhere 1,500 to 2,500 words. And so being able to sustain that level of writing output was not difficult for me. Now I'm posting 3 episodes a week, which is something I just launched in December, because on the polls of my story, I've been polling people and they all wanted more frequent episodes, which I had to decide, can I do that sustainably? So I took a couple months to write a lot of content ahead so that I would have lead time. And then I launched my 3 episodes a week. So now I have to keep up with that. But again, right now my episodes are scheduled out through February 1st. So as long as between now and then I can write 3 more and get those up and I can stay ahead of that, then I'll be fine. And I can take a hiatus. I've done that before. But I usually try not to take more than a week or 2, because I don't want to completely be forgotten by my readers. They can follow a story, so they get a notification inside their Kindle app when I post. But at the same time, if I'm not posting content regularly, at least once a week, then they get bored and they move on to other stories. So let me see. Vella is still pretty on market driven. I'm not good at writing to market, to be honest. My ideas are a little bit eclectic and weird mashups of things. So like what I'm writing right now is a YA, basically urban fantasy story, but inspired by Irish folklore, and it's got fae in it, and it's very much, it's not epic fantasy, it's urban. And so my story is doing well on Vella, but the top trending ones do tend to be very tropey, if that makes sense, because they have ravenous audiences for those types of writing, and it's not always the same trope, but they do tend to be like very narrowly defined genres, and then they just put their own spin on it, and that's usually what's innately doing well. Again, a lot of those authors are also driving traffic with Facebook ads. So there is nonfiction also on Vella, but I don't see it trending nearly as much. And I don't know if it's because those authors aren't driving traffic to it, or if it's just not a naturally, if it's not as wanted by the typical serial readers. I'm not sure. How are the Facebook ads different for Vella than for a novel? Okay, so what I found that works for Vella ads is an excerpt of episode 1 of the story. And this is another thing with writing serials in general, but particularly on Vella, because they have a paywall at the end of every episode once they get past episode 3. So writing, hooking and keeping them hooked, and then having a big cliffhanger hook push of some kind at the end of every episode. And it doesn't have to be like a big dramatic event, but something that emotionally pulls them through to the next episode. So I have tried to craft all of my episodes with some sort of hook at the end. And then episode 3, I needed a big hook, because that's where they hit the end of the free episodes and it pushes to like, now they have to pay. And then episode 9 to 10 is where the 200 free tokens run out for new users on my story, because the token cost of every episode is based on that episode's word count. So for my story, I've calculated that episode 9 is where the free tokens run out and they'd have to pay to unlock 10. So I needed to make sure that episode 9 had a push through to 10. And anyway, so for Facebook ads, it's the same thing. I needed to pick something hooky from episode 1, an excerpt that I can run, and then you need an eye-catching image that also communicates the vibe of your story. So I've done a lot of testing with this, and I've realized that certain images just give the wrong vibe. Like they make it feel more epic fantasy and it's not, or they make it feel like it's a romance and it's not, or they make it feel like it has no romance, but it does. And so I've had to pick images. I found one image that is like the image that works best, but then I occasionally have to cycle other ones through because I don't want it to get creative fatigue. And then the same with an excerpt. I found that excerpts from episode 1 work better than later in the story, because I think if they start reading an excerpt and then they get to episode 1 and it's something different, it just confuses them and I get less read through that way. So what I found with ebooks though is that doesn't work the same. Like I've tried replicating what I've done with the Vella ads for ebooks and it just doesn't work as well. I think an ebook audience doesn't necessarily want like a big long excerpt from episode 1 with a push through hook. They want more of an overall view of what the book is about. It's just slightly different, and I'm still trying to figure out how to replicate my success with the Vella Facebook ads for my ebooks. I haven't nailed that yet. Testing some ads this month, trying to still figure that out. Let's see. Number of episodes per ebook. Do you mean when I eventually publish them as ebooks? Okay. So yes, so what I'm actually writing right now is called Macchiato's Fairy Princes and Other Things That Happen at Midnight is the name of my serial. But it's actually a trilogy arc that I planned out ahead of time. And I've inside the serial, I've called it part 1, part 2, part 3. But it's all posting in the one story on Vella. So that story is now up to almost 100 episodes. It's not finished posting yet. But essentially, book 1 is the first 37-ish episodes. Book 2 is part 2. And so when I planned the story ahead of time, I structured it into book arcs and a trilogy arc. And the reason I didn't post each book as a separate story on Vella is really because of Vella itself. They don't have a way to link your stories. And so if someone were to finish part 1, I would literally in the author note have to just say, please search on your Amazon bar for part 2. Like there's no natural way that they flow from one to the next. So I decided to remove that barrier and just post the full trilogy arc in one story, which is working for me. But I do have other trilogies planned in that larger world, and I will post that as a separate story. That way, if somebody comes to one, they can be read independently of each other, but they're all existing in the same story world. So hopefully I'll get flow of readership from one to the other without interrupting the reader flow between the books of that trilogy, if that makes sense. So right now though, I'm not great at estimating how many words it will take to tell my story. So I have the plot planned out, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I can do that in one episode. And then I start writing it and I'm like, I cannot do this in one episode. So part 1 of my story was roughly 37 episodes. Part 2 of my story was roughly 38 episodes. Part 3, the conclusion of my story, is currently it's probably going to end up being more like 50 episodes. It's going to be a slightly longer book when I publish it. Word count wise though, my episodes in part 1, some of them were longer. So part 1 ended up being about 80,000 words. Part 2 was about 55,000, 57,000 words. Part 3 is probably going to end up being more in the 80 to 90,000 range. Do your chapters remain up from the first published? Yes. So all the episodes I've published so far are all available. And once a reader has unlocked it, it's unlocked for them permanently. So if they wanted to go back and reread, they could. So a new reader finding my story can start at episode 1 and binge read all the way through, which is another reason why Facebook ads are now more profitable for me, because if I can hook even 2 binge readers a day, I can get hundreds of episodes, like a couple hundred episode reads from just those 2 readers. So having more episodes over time is definitely beneficial. And then once I decide to publish it as an ebook, I decide whether I leave it up on Vella or pull it down. I'm planning to leave mine on Vella because I have a newsletter list with some followers, and they don't want to read on Vella. They're waiting for me to release these as ebooks. So I will eventually release them as ebooks, but I'm still also going to leave it up on Vella in hopes that as I post the next trilogy set in its own story on Vella, maybe I'll still be able to drive some traffic to the first one, either from that one or from the other one. Once you stop actively posting on a story, then the algorithms are working against you in terms of bonus amounts, because you're not going to be staying on the top page list, and you're not. So you either have to continue to drive traffic with Facebook ads, or you just have to accept that that story is going to drop while maybe another one of your stories that you're actively writing rises up. But you can still funnel traffic between the two of them if they're in a similar genre and your readers. What I found is that if readers read to the end of whatever I've posted, it's not the end of the story yet necessarily, but they're waiting for the next episode. If I had another series up there that was in a similar genre, they would go read it while they're waiting, because they want more, but they're waiting. So I think eventually having a backlist of Vella stories in the same world is going to be very beneficial for me. But of course, that takes like a lot of time to build. And so I'm kind of viewing it as I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm trying to do this at a sustainable pace for what I can realistically do, because I do have 4 kids. I homeschool them. I work part-time. So this is, I tend to binge write. So I'm literally planning this weekend to probably write like at least 3 episodes, probably 4 or 5 if I can manage. And then I have a team of alpha readers that kind of like reads and gives me feedback, and I can tweak them. And then those will get scheduled up on Vella. And then I probably won't write again for a few days because I have other things that need my attention. So, I'm not I tried to be a disciplined, write everyday person, but my life is too chaotic for that. Let's see, can you outline what your copy is on a Facebook ad? Yeah, so I try to specify in my actual ad copy, I have the excerpt, and then at the end, I say it's on Vella. Because I say something like, read this serial novel now on Kindle Vella. The first 3 episodes are free, and Amazon gives 200 free tokens to new readers so you can continue to unlock. Something like that. I put at the end. And then my headline on the ad itself usually says read now on Kindle Vella, or some variation of that, because I don't get them so much, maybe because I do that, but some of my friends who are spending way more and getting more traffic on their Amazon or their Facebook ads get a lot of negative comments from readers who are like, why isn't this in an ebook? Or I thought this was an ebook. Oh, I hate Amazon Vella. Like I don't want to read it. Like, so, and part of that is also your audience targeting. But I do make sure to specify there that it is a Vella story, that it is, I try to set the expectation by mentioning tokens, by mentioning serial, by mentioning Kindle Vella. Because then my clicks on the ad are more quality clicks. I've already filtered out the people who know they don't want that. Does that answer the question, Moon?
Yeah, that was my concern, is that there are steps they may not be familiar with, plus the idea of, oh, this is a serialized novel. So yeah, so you have to address those issues in your ad, which can be lengthy. So I'm just curious, and you've answered it basically, that you do tell them ahead what their expectations should be. So that's what I want to know on your ad. So
and
that's
I actually, to add to that, I actually say sign in to Amazon and read, and then the rest of that. Because another wall that my friend who was testing ads found was when you click on a link to be taken to Kindle Vella, Amazon immediately prompts you to sign in. And that was freaking people out. So if I can say sign into Amazon to read, then they're expecting that when they click, and they're not as panicked by it. Like, why am I having to log into Amazon? And I think also it's helping as Kindle Vella gets more awareness in the readership community, then they don't worry that it's some sort of a phishing scam that they're gonna, they're like, oh, this is actual Amazon. This is a Kindle Vella story. Okay. The other thing that I do, and I don't like this necessarily because I feel like it would confuse me as a reader, but the data doesn't lie because I've tested it. I link directly to episode 1. I do not link to my story's landing page. So essentially, I have to set all the expectation for what my story is in the ad itself. So when they click and they immediately get taken to my ad text for episode 1 after they log in, they're not confused, like, what is this? But I think that taking them to the landing page itself, even though it, from my perspective, would be less confusing because it gives you the description of the story and like shows you all the episodes. I think that it's too much of a break between, they were hooked by the excerpt and they want to keep reading. And then if they get to this landing page where they then have to go find the episode they were reading, it's too much of an obstacle. So I linked directly to episode 1, which, because Amazon gives every episode its own ASIN, you can link to whatever episode you want. But of course, I want people to start at episode 1. So I linked directly to that. What they see when they log in is literally like they get taken to just a page that has like login, sign into your Amazon account. And then as soon as they sign in, they immediately see the title of episode 1 and my episode text. Like that's what they see. So
Is
and
Amazon,
go ahead.
is Amazon dropping money into ads to help people understand Vella itself? Because that's what's going to help you, is that once people get familiar with the platform, know it's there, you don't have to educate them so much. You can just talk about the story.
They have been, but sort of on a lag. So when Vella first launched, honestly, we, the authors, were doing all of that. Nobody knew what Vella was. Amazon was literally running no ads at first. And it was all on us to explain to people what this even was. So we, we were doing blogs, newsletters. I had some YouTube videos I was sharing with my existing like Facebook follower base, because we had to explain what Vella was and how it worked. Now Amazon is running ads for Vella itself and for some of the most popular stories in Vella. So I do think it's becoming easier. Like, it's not as foreign to people when they see it. They're not as confused by it. But the overall, I think Amazon has some work to do in terms of just overall educating of what Vella is, because some of their ad copy, some of the way they're presenting it is confusing, I think, for readers. For example, their slogan from the start has been stories told one short episode at a time, or some variation of that. But then they were promoting it like it's so different from ebooks, but they didn't have any of the serial features like commenting. Now they have polls and different things, but they didn't at first. So it literally was like you were just reading an ebook in smaller portions that you had to pay tokens for parts of. So then we were getting a lot of angry reviews from readers who were like, what's the point of this? Like, why can't you just put this as an ebook and it would probably be cheaper for me? And in reality, I've done the math, and the overall cost for someone to unlock episodically like this is very negligible of a difference from what normally would be charged for a fantasy ebook. But sort of presenting it like the cost benefit, where it's like you get the interactivity, you get author notes, you get polls, you get comments. Like, some of those features didn't exist at first. So it was harder to show people the value of why they should read in a serial format instead of just waiting for it to come out as an ebook, if that makes sense. It's getting a little easier now because Amazon is sort of promoting it better, and they're adding better features. I'm excited for commenting because I think that's going to be a game changer for the platform, honestly. Yeah, it like I said, we've always had the joke that we just think it's Dave in the basement. Like, every time something goes wrong with Amazon, we're like, oh, Dave, he spilled his Mountain Dew on the keyboard again. Like, because there have been just some things that it's like, the KDP Sam in the forum, I don't even know if Sam is her real name, but I know she took maternity leave and someone else came in and took her place. And they were both great. Very respectful, very eager to actually hear author feedback. But then the implementation of that sometimes takes some time because the team, I think, for Vella is really small. That's just the impression I get. I don't know how many people are actually on it, but I think it's pretty small. Any other questions? For me, oh, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to comment because you've been talking about doing your Facebook ads and taking people right to the text so that they can start reading. I just wanted to say that tracks with what we do as far as just advertising regular products in e-commerce and that sort of thing. If you make an ad for somebody and you take them essentially to your catalog, you're going to lose a lot of those people. They're not going to look for the thing you wanted them to look for. If your ad is for blue shoes, they better go right to a blue shoe they can click on and buy it. And so that tracks with what we experience in commercial stuff. So
Yeah. I was just going to say, I know this sounds like a lot of work, but for me, I really enjoy writing in this format because I am essentially getting paid for writing my novels that I can then later release. So to answer Doc's question, yes, you can, is he still here? You can release them as ebooks and paperback after. So again, there's a 30-day exclusivity period and there are some restrictions. Like, for example, you have to, when you package it in long form, as they call it, it has to have at least 10 episodes. So what they're trying to avoid is you releasing like an episode at a time in ebook and trying to essentially double charge people for buying your episodes. So they've said that you can package them, but they have to be at least 10 episodes together when you package them. For me, it's going to be 30 plus, so it's no big deal. And then the latest episode that's in that package has to have been on Vella for at least 30 days by the time you release. But other than that, you can do whatever you want. So for me, I am getting paid as I'm writing my book, and then I can still release it and market it to an ebook audience who didn't want to read it serially later. And then once they add comments, I'll enjoy that part too. Some of the authors are afraid of comments and they don't want them. But I know from my interactions on Wattpad that was a part of the work that I actually really enjoyed, was interfacing with readers and responding to their comments and things. So, yes. So what Moon was saying, I'm getting paid as I'm writing it. I will say that I wouldn't recommend just pantsing something with no planning on Vella, because it is not a first draft platform. They are paying to purchase these episodes, and they expect them to be like publishable quality. So if you have something that is very clearly a first draft and it's messy, and what I mean, like structure wise or grammar wise or anything, if it's messy, you will probably get lots of angry reviews because people are paying to unlock that. The good thing is they get to sample the first 3, so they probably will get a vibe for whether that's what you're writing and just decide not to continue to unlock. So if you can write very clean early drafts, and if you can either plan ahead well enough or are just very good at improvising, because I do a mix of the two. Sometimes I figure out that I've plotted myself into a corner with what I've already released. And I have a personal rule that I never go back and edit episodes I've already published, because I don't feel like that's fair to readers who have already read those. Then they're just going to be confused if I change something major from those moving forward. So if I've written myself into a corner and I don't realize it until later, even though I'm writing ahead and trying to plan ahead, then I just have to figure it out. So there's a little bit of improv that happens if I hit that point. And occasionally I do hit a point of that on some level every dozen episodes or so, where I realize that I now have so many story threads and plot arcs going, and I dropped this one back there somewhere and I have to figure out how to pick it back up. And I have multiple POVs happening in the story at this point too. So I'm tracking a lot of things. But my personal rule is I don't go back and edit the earlier episodes. Grammar, maybe, like if I find a typo, yes, because you can edit. You have a dashboard and you can edit the episodes at any point you want. But I decided not to because I don't want to confuse readers. So.
Okay. So you're talking about being able to publish the book after, but do you have to publish with Amazon, or could you take this to a traditional publisher just totally apart from Amazon?
You can go wide with it. And by that, I mean, I can publish it on other platforms besides Amazon. Taking it to a traditional publisher, you would probably just run into them. They would have to be okay with it having already been available in serial format, but on Amazon side, there would be no issue with that. They're not claiming any rights or any kind of exclusivity for the content beyond the 30-day time period, and that you cannot publish it in a serial format for free elsewhere. you can publish it in a serial format behind a paywall elsewhere. So I have my own publishing site that is like that I run, and I put all the same content that I put in Vella there, but it's behind a paywall for my members. So that's okay with Amazon, but if I was just doing it on my public blog, then that would not be okay, if that makes sense. Any other questions? I think the potential for making money with Vella is definitely there. I have friends who I know are making really, really good income with Vella. But it isn't a easy put up a story and you're just gonna make tons of money. It is definitely a business. You have to kind of approach it with a business mindset. So any questions? Oh, the colored Post-it notes. This is my Kanban board. I have so much going on in my life that this is how I organize all of my tasks and goals for each quarter. So this is my quarter one. The columns are my job, my writing, and my homeschool / family life. And then top row is stuff still to be done. Middle row is stuff in progress. Bottom row is completed. And that's how I make sure I don't forget anything I'm supposed to do. And also it's therapeutic for me to sit at the start of each quarter and purge all of my brain chaos onto little Post-it notes that are color coded. So that's what that is. And I also have an actual calendar over on this side that has, deadlines and things like that. And then this back here is my short stories that I'm tracking, ones that are need edits, are ready to go out for submission. I kind of track those separately because that's like a different brain category for me. That's what that is. Any other questions?
We certainly bounced you one way or another. I was going to say you could go back to anything you thought, but I see John has a question. So sorry, John.
It's more of a comment. I just want to say that every time I've thought of a question, if I just keep listening, you've eventually gotten to the answer without me having to ask. So well done. This is an excellent presentation. And I just want to say that it's the first time I've ever seen a Kanban board used outside of a factory. Maybe everybody's doing it these days. I don't know, but I'm impressed.
I got the idea from another indie author, but she uses it differently than I do. She uses it to track her individual projects. My brain feels like it has separate tracks that I have to organize. So because I have my writing and I have my job and I have homeschooling and family. So that's how I set mine up because it's what made sense for me. But I did get the idea from another indie author, but I think it usually is kind of used more like on a project basis. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have questions for me? Yes.
Okay, I came in late. Did you give a link to one of these stories? Or, for those of us who aren't on Facebook?
Yeah, I can give you a link to one. It's a YA fantasy, so it may not be for everybody, but I'll drop the link to the actual landing page here in the chat. Give me 1 second. That's my main story. I have one other one I mentioned that I'm running, but I'm not really promoting it as much because it's not sort of my primary. This one I'm trying to build into, like I said, I have multiple series I want to launch in the same world and all of that. So. Any other questions? If you do go to that page, just one thing I want to note, you'll see that there's like a little golden crown on the top right of my story emblem. That means my story is on the top saved list. And you can also see, if you open that link, you can see it's marked as top faved. I'm not bragging, I'm just explaining how the system works. And you'll also see that there are 7 like category tags underneath my story description. I choose those, and those are keyword tags that readers can they actually populate as lists, searchable lists inside Vella if a reader clicks on them, and they can read any stories that have put that keyword tag on their story. In addition to those keyword tags, I have 2 primary genre categories I can choose. Mine is in fantasy and then teen and young adult. And again, those are searchable categories within the site. And I can look and see, last I checked, my story was in the first 1 to 2 pages of all my tag ranks and categories. So that's one way that I can kind of track how my traction on Vella is doing. If I see myself dropping in those lists, then I know that I'm getting less traffic to my story, whether it's coming in as reads or not. I think those ranks are based straight on unlocks and reads versus the top faved, which is based on what readers decide to pick. The top fave system is a little strange because it actually, if you have more than one story on Vella, your stories are pitted against each other. A reader can only pick one top fave per week. So you're actually competing with yourself for top faves at that point. So it's not my favorite system, but it's the current system that they have for primary visibility on Vella, but then there are also the category lists and the tag lists that you can get visibility on. So for top keywords list, what we found, if you go to the main page for Kindle Vella, they have a scroll bar that is like essentially the most popular tag categories. And they have a little cluster of images and it shows the cover for the top 3 stories in that category, whether they're top faved or not, just the top 3 in that category. So what I try to do is a combination of, I try to hit a few of those that are my tags that I know are getting visibility, but they're more competitive. So I also try to hit a few that are more nuanced, that are a really good fit for my target readers, but not quite as competitive. So the last I checked, like one of the tags on my story is teen romance. And I was like the top story in that category, but it doesn't get a lot of visibility. Like it's not a very big category. But if a reader were to go there, they would immediately see my story. So I try to do a combination of the popular tags that I might have a chance of getting some visibility in, and then the more nuanced ones that I know I can kind of dominate the visibility, for lack of a better word. Any other questions? And a lot of this is stuff that like I had learned researching indie publishing over the years, and then I've just had to adapt to Vella, you know, the importance of keywords and targeting your target readership and all of that. But it's taken some tweaking. And my story, obviously, I'm not where I want to be with it yet. I would love to be making thousands a month with it. But I've chosen to slow grow. So like I said, I'm reinvesting my ads back in every month as I make the profit. I'm reinvesting that back in, increasing my ad spend steadily month by month in hopes that I can eventually grow it into something in a way that's more sustainable for me. And the same with my output. I would love to have like a bunch of stories going at once and just have mega visibility, but I don't have the actual time for that. I don't, and the energy. I would probably just collapse. So I'm trying to do this in a sustainable, steady growth way and view it as a business that I'm working to grow. Yes, okay, so movement from Vella to website and newsletter. We have the author notes. Amazon does not let us hyperlink out of the platform. So the author notes have no hyperlinks, but we are allowed to promote they want us interacting with readers, but they want the interaction to be like a community interaction to keep the readers engaged and excited about the next episode. So they encourage us to share our social media handles, our newsletter, signups, all of that in the author notes, but nothing is clickable. Like they have to actually copy paste it or go there. So I do in some of my author notes try to drive people to a newsletter or to my social media. And then my friend who's like doing in the top ranks, she even wrote a bonus story that's tied to her world as an incentive for sign up for her newsletter. So she drives people at somewhere in her author notes at some point in that story, she's like, Would you like to read a side story about these characters? Sign up for my newsletter. So we can do all those things. You can use the author notes however you want to use them. Some authors use them for like behind the scenes information. Some use them more of like a promotional thing. I try to be a mix with mine. I don't want everything to feel like I'm trying to sell or drive somebody somewhere. So some of mine are more personal, behind the scenes stuff. Sometimes I just thank them for reading because, you know, I want them to know that I appreciate them being there. But you can use those however you want. So that is the tool that we have. The only tool right now that we have for sending readers from Vella to something else that we have. If you don't cannibalize your own product line, your competitors will happily do it for you. Yeah, so for me, I've just had to accept the reality that as long as they keep the top fave system, I will be competing with myself on some level on Vella. So I'm just hoping that if I have people who are reading one story, if they finish it and they move to another, maybe I have a different story that's now trending up the top faved. But as long as I have one that's sticking on some level, then I'm considering that a success. My friend has several. She's somehow, she runs ads for all of her stories. She has multiple stories going. One is her primary one that stays in the top ranks. And then she has several that are lower on the top fave list, but are still hanging around the 50 to 100, 150 range that she's driving readers to as well. So you can then multiply, you get a bonus for each of those stories. So you can multiply your income that way if you can sustain the output of multiple stories. Oh, and there is a target readership that waits until a story is completed to read it. They don't want the angst of waiting episode to episode, and Vella has a mechanism where when you've completed a story, you can click completed on it, and it now shows completed on the story when people are browsing. So my strategy is that once I've completed this trilogy arc and I mark it complete, now I'm going to be marketing that story to a slightly different audience. I'm going to be marketing it. I'm going to change my ad copy a little bit so people know this story is complete. You can binge the entire thing while and I'll still be driving traffic to that while I'm writing the next one on Vella. So yes, I do enjoy doing this. For me, there's a lot of energy coming back to me from, I can publish an episode and I can see a return from it right away. Like, I have a few readers that when a new episode goes up, they go and read it and I can see those unlocks come in. But it's more than that. It's also that rather than, so for me, the way that I'm doing this, I would have had to write the full trilogy in isolation with no reader feedback and then release the trilogy. But instead, I've been able to get reader interaction and feedback as I'm going and see that people are enjoying it. And that helps motivate me to keep writing it. The other thing is that now that we have polls, I've actually been able to say because I have multiple POVs in this storyline now. So I've been able to say which set of characters are you most excited to get back to? And then that informs me of, okay, this one needs to be cycled back in soon because readers are waiting for it. So I find all of that motivating. Maybe not everybody would, but I do. Any other questions? I also love doing polls where I just ask them about the story and get their reactions. It's motivating for me, but it's also helpful as a storyteller to be able to get their reactions to certain plot events or how they feel about certain character relationships and things like that. So,
is there anything that you think you need to wrap up with?
I think I've pretty much covered everything. I guess I would say, I know it sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but if you enjoy writing in this format, it can be very rewarding. I am enjoying writing this way. I plan to keep writing this way. I do plan to eventually release them as ebooks because I have a separate segment of audience who doesn't want serial format. But I'm looking forward to them adding comments so I can go deeper into interaction on Vella. For me, it's a very fun way of writing and sharing stories with readers. And it's been more monetarily beneficial for me than ebook sales ever have been. So the return that I see with ad spend coming back to me from the bonus pool is a lot more than what I've ever gotten with trying to run ads for ebooks. Still working on ebook ads. But for Vella, I'm making enough from it to make me feel like it's worth the time and effort I'm putting in, I guess is what I'm saying. So I do think it's a viable income for an author if it aligns with the way that you write and what motivates you. Otherwise, it could probably just feel like a grind and it wouldn't be worth it. So.
Well, one thing I wanted to say was the idea that you're putting in a small investment. It's probably good that you're in the ground floor in that, because what we see in general marketing, again, commercial marketing, is that small businesses have a really hard time competing, and even the customers, the clients that we have that are able to compete in just general Facebook and Google ads and that sort of thing, they like $1,000 a month is almost a minimum just to get any traction. Some of our customers spend many times that. So this still, again, sounds like a small market where right now you can start to make a name for yourself and with a small investment in Facebook and stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised as it grows to see the necessity for that investment increase, especially if somebody's just trying to break into it, especially if somebody's new and you're established.
Yes, I definitely think that's the case. I'm glad that I got in when I did. But I do still think it's very much in the early stages where people could get in now. Like I said, I roughly spending 300 something in ads every month and then making back 500-600. So we're not talking huge like full-time income levels, but in terms of being able to invest something I can actually afford to invest in ads and then slowly grow it by rolling my profit back in. That probably won't be the case forever with Vella, like he's saying. It's going to get more competitive and it's going to take a higher ad spend to even get traction. The fact that I can get a reasonable amount of traction with my current ad spend is really good. So.
All right. Well, Crystal, I really want to thank you for coming today. And if somebody may have a last question, but before they do that, let's give Crystal a hand, because I think that was really an exceptionally good presentation and very informative. And once again, I learned a lot about this system.
Thank you.
I have a question this time.
Go ahead.
Do you find you suggested that the whole community, the reading community, has functionality has kind of been growing or evolving? Have you found any instances where comments amongst your readers about a story in progress has changed your narrative arc that you haven't written yet? I can understand why you don't want to go back and edit, but have you ever found yourself changing any character arcs or narrative arcs?
Yes. So I have the benefit also because commenting is still limited. Commenting as a general feature is only limited to certain stories that are in beta right now on Vella, but we do have polls. So I'm able to get info from the polls. And so that has shaped on some level, if I was considering doing a certain thing with a character, but then I got a really strong feedback on a poll, then I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to do that. But I also have a small alpha team of people I trust that read my stuff before it goes to Vella. And that's honestly where, if there's been a major change, it's usually happened at that stage, because they also leave me feedback. And there have been times that they're like, if you kill this character, I will murder you, right? And so sometimes I still do it if the story is better for it. But other times I think, well, do I have to? Like, is there another way that I could work this? So I do take them into account. I don't necessarily shape my whole story around them, but I do like having that input, because sometimes it even helps me work my way out of those corners I've written myself into, where they'll comment on something that I didn't even think about. And then I'm like, oh, I did plant that detail. I could do something with that. So yeah, I do definitely shape my story around the feedback. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited for the commenting feature to be released widespread on Vella, because when I was writing on Wattpad, the comment and interaction with the readers was one of my favorite parts. So
Cool.
well, thank
Great.
you guys for having me and listening to me talk for over an hour. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Crystal.